You are listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with Steve Worsley, the toxic mold expert and your number one source for mold consulting and mitigation in the USA. Let's dive into a brand new episode.
Before we get started on this episode, here's a not-so-short disclaimer. While all attempts have been made to verify the content provided in this podcast, neither the podcaster nor the producers assume any responsibility for errors, omissions, or alternative interpretations of the issues discussed here. All information stated in this podcast is the opinion of Steve Worsley. Steve Worsley is a mold specialist with over 25 years of experience in the construction and mold industry. The Toxic Mold Podcast is for information sharing purposes only. The views expressed are those of the podcaster and his alone. These views should not be taken as expert instruction or commands. While there may be references to medical conditions and symptoms, all podcast episodes are the opinion of Steve Worsley, and any medical questions or concerns shall be addressed with the appropriate licensed medical professional or professionals. As the podcaster refers to different mold types, please be aware that Steve Worsley is not a microbiologist, and questions concerning mold specifics should be answered by the appropriate professional. Steve isn't, nor does he offer any legal advice. For any legal advice, you must speak to a lawyer. The listener is 100% responsible for his or her own actions. You can check out Steve's books on Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for author Steve Worsley. You can also take Steve's mold education courses, such as Mold 101 and the Mycotoxin Prevention Kit, by going to cnccontractorservices.com. Again, check out his mold education courses at cnccontractorservices.com. Now, let's get to the episode.
Hello, you're listening to the Toxic Mold Podcast with myself, Steve Worsley. We have my wife, Cassandra. I'm supposed to be getting guests, but
it's coming.
I got remediation projects and like everything. I'm busy. So anyhow, last week we talked about disclosures and purchasing a home in a real estate transaction. So now we're going to kind of go down a different lane. And today we're going to talk about building a mold resistant home, how to avoid toxic mold.
Which is a good topic because you wrote a book on this called Black Mold Avoidance, How to Build a Mold Resistant Home. And you covered a lot of this.
Exactly. Speaking of things I've got to do, I'm supposed to be revising all my books, but
it's on the list.
Yeah. Like everything else. So for our listeners, like in your opinion, what's the first thing our listeners should do if they're going to plan on building a new home?
I think they should be hiring you to help them walk through the whole process because there's a lot of pieces that can go wrong very early in the process, especially if you're buying a spec home or a tract home from a construction company that's just like slapping brand new houses together in subdivisions.
Yeah. So I want to touch on that a little bit. Ideally, for our listeners, the first thing you should do is reach out to me and purchase a home building package.
Yes.
Not purchasing, home building.
Yes.
And those packages vary. The pricing is determined by how much involvement you want from me. So if it's fairly simple, like for the most part, you don't want me to do a VPA, you don't want me to help you find a contractor, it's going to be a lot cheaper. But we have in those packages, I can interact with you as much as you want. Literally, like do several VPAs, which is a virtual property assessment. So my point is for our listeners, the cost depends on how much interaction you want from me.
Absolutely. And wanting extensive interaction from day one, meaning really even before you purchase the land, because there's lots of things that new home buyers don't really think about the land.
Right. So let's touch on that a little bit. What is important about where they buy the land?
Well, you want to be sure that the lot that they're purchasing didn't used to be a swamp or an agriculture. Like, can you talk about water tables a little bit?
Right. So when I talk about the water table, depending on where you're at geographically. So let's just say like Texas, Florida. I don't know about like Alabama or Georgia, but I know in Texas and Florida, the water table's fairly high. So those homes typically don't have a basement.
Yes.
Whereas out west, depending, if you bought in town right across from the river, the water table is going to be really high.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably don't want a basement. But for the most part, out west, most homes have basements.
Yes.
So for our listeners, the water table is important because if you're out in the county or country, you're probably going to have a septic tank. When you have a septic tank, what we do, because our listeners probably know this, that in a previous life, I was a general contractor. I'm still a general contractor, but I don't do it like I used to.
Yes.
You have to do what's called a perk test. Well, what that is you dig a hole, you put X amount of water in there, and then you see how quickly it filtrates or goes into the soils. Does that make sense?
It does, to see
like how long your leach field has to be.
Okay, interesting.
So septic tanks, this is what's interesting with septic tanks. For the most part, the size of your tank is determined by how many bedrooms you have.
Okay.
So let's just say it's a couple that their kids are all raised and moved away. If they build a 6-bedroom house, they're going to have a lot larger septic tank versus than a 2-bedroom.
Okay.
So it's based on how much they think is going to be going through that septic tank. So the perk test determines the length of your leach field. Well, when it comes back to the water table, if you have a higher water table, you're going to want sump pumps. It's going to determine what I call the zero. So zero, when we're building something, is the top of the foundation.
Okay.
Why is that important? Well, if you put the top of your foundation lower than the road, where's all the water going to go?
Yeah, right into your foundation.
Exactly.
Which is going to cause moisture intrusion problems in the long run.
Exactly. So you always want to be at least 1 or 2 feet above the crown in the road so that everything runs away.
And see, that's one prime example of something most people who are going to buy a new home never know to ask because they don't understand how that works,
right.
Which is why having a consultant with you from day one helps save you a lot of headache and trouble.
Right. Yep. And so for our listeners, another important thing, so let's kind of go back a little bit. One of the most important things is hiring the proper contractor. So if you have a contractor, you just mentioned it, that they build tract homes, they're pumping who knows how many homes out every year, but a ton. Those contractors, it's all about quantity, not quality.
Exactly.
And I don't want to take a shot at general contractors, but most general contractors don't think that mold's a problem. So that's another key factor. Make sure you're getting a contractor that understands that mold is a concern.
Well, and here's where that becomes so critical and important. General contractor that doesn't think mold is actually an issue, they don't care if they're building your house in the winter and they're leaving wood out to be exposed to snow and rain for that wood to get wet. And then they don't think about those kinds of things or worry about those kinds of things because they don't think mold is an issue.
Yeah. So I want to touch on something. It's kind of chronologically, it's way further in the construction process, but something we see all the time is what we call lumber mold. So for our listeners, what is lumber mold? Well, it could be the mold because they didn't cover, all the 2x4s or framing materials. It rains, or they have put the walls up, it rains and it gets wet. And if you're in Florida where the humidity is high, the mold starts to grow.
Exactly.
That's lumber mold.
Yes.
Most contractors are going to tell you that's no big deal. That happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that you've really got to pay attention to. So going back a little bit, you want to make sure you get the proper contractor, period.
Yeah.
Then you have to go through, like you said, all these steps, like what's going to be the elevation of the top of the foundation. Do we need a footings drain? Do we need a foundation drain? Do we need sump pumps? How big is our septic tank going to be if you're out in the county? How long is the leach field? There's a ton of factors there. So once you have your contractor and you trust him, one of the most important things is the type of foundation that you have. So we talked about out west, a full foundation has a basement.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a slab on grade, which more or less, that's kind of like your Walmart and commercial properties. You go in from the parking lot, it's the same level.
Exactly.
Or you can have a crawl space, meaning it can be a 4 foot, it should be at least 4 feet crawl space. And so the house sits up higher. The type of foundation you do, we're talking poured concrete, cinder block, piers. If it's a slab on grade, it's a post-tension slab. What you do is very important. But let's just talk about like what we do out west, a full foundation. What's really important is to make sure that that foundation, after it's poured, the forms are stripped, that you do the proper waterproofing.
Yes. And what does that look like, the proper waterproofing?
It's typically just tar, or you can buy, it comes like in a big roll, and one side is, you have to pull it off, but it adheres to the foundation. But for the most part, it's going to be tar or some sort of rubber membrane.
Okay. And what about grading and drainage on a new home?
So once again, we've got to make sure the top of the foundation is higher than the road.
Okay.
If you put the top of the foundation lower than the road, all the water is going to run to the house. And sometimes it just depends, topography is important too. Like if you have a hill, you can put a walkout basement in. Sometimes you have to be lower than the crown of the road.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, then that's when we start putting, drain tile systems in and sump pumps. But the grading and drainage is probably the number one defect that I see when it comes to moisture intrusion.
Okay. And so I guess my question for you is, and you talk a lot about this in black mold avoidance, but how does somebody who is not handy and they've paid their general contractor, how do they actually verify that all these things are being done well?
You have to do routine inspections.
Oh, but what if a contractor tells you don't come on the house site while we're building it? Can they do that?
Well, that's where you and I have talked about this. When I was building homes, it's a bit irritating when the clients, the buyers are showing up all the time.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, from the contractor's perspective, it's liability issue.
Mm-hmm.
Can't have, usually it's the husband and the wife, and then they have a couple kids, maybe dad or grandpa or uncle or whoever. All those people coming onto the property all the time is a huge liability issue. But going back to the packages we sell, you should do inspections. And when I say inspections, this is not the local municipality that's doing it. Those are code inspectors.
Okay.
And just because the code inspector says it passed doesn't mean it's done properly.
Correct.
So going back to grading and drainage, our standard state for 6 feet from the foundation, it has positive slope away from the home.
Okay.
Like I said, it's probably the most common defect that I see is improper grading and drainage. It's either flat or it runs to the foundation.
Which is just not good at all.
Yeah, moisture intrusion leads to structural concerns, foundation cracks, things like that. And then, of course, to mold.
So I want to go to a different question about all of this because you're going to talk about some of the things that will help somebody build a mold resistant home. Why is it that somebody can't, because somebody might be listening to this and they go, well, I don't want just a mold resistant home. I want a mold free home.
That's almost virtually impossible.
Okay.
Mold is naturally present. So the only way you could do that is almost like a lab. Does that make sense?
Or live in a castle like in Scotland or Ireland?
No, you couldn't even do it there.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has to be literally sealed off so that nothing from the outside can get inside. To answer your question, it's just not realistic.
Okay.
Because if you're going to build a mold-free home, you could have zero cellulose materials.
So zero. Your furniture is going to be concrete.
Caveman day.
So really the best we're going for is a mold-resistant home. So what are all the things that if you were working with a client, they're like, well, what things will help us get a mold-resistant home? What are the things?
Well, the building materials is very important.
Okay.
So the type of foundation, the type of siding,
mm-hmm.
the type of roof, the type of framing. You can go with metal. There's homes that are actually, it's all poured concrete.
Wow.
Which that would cost a ton of money.
Yeah.
The thing is about a mold resistant home, it's just like our bodies. You have to maintain it. You could build a mold resistant home, and if you don't maintain it, you're still going to have mold.
Correct.
But they have drywall that's mold resistant. It's called green board.
Mm-hmm.
We see mold all the time in bathrooms with green board.
Okay.
But going back to your question, the type of flooring, there's just so many different factors that we have to look at.
So obviously, when we talk about the type of flooring, if you want a mold resistant home, you're staying away from carpet and going to hardwood floors, right?
And if our listeners have listened long enough, I am not a big fan of carpet. It's a buffet for mold.
So carpet, no. Hardwood floors, or what are the laminate floors?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think the best would be tile.
Tile. Oh, that's right.
And for our listeners, they're like, we don't want tile in our bedrooms. Well, you can put big area rugs in.
Exactly, which can be removed as they need to be.
And LVP, which is a laminate,
mm-hmm.
you mentioned hardwood. It's just a synthetic.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what most people do just for cost. But once again, you can put runners down the hallways. You could put area rugs, in the living room, the kitchen. But ultimately, I would go with tile.
Okay. And so what about, I'm going to ask a controversial question. What about bathtubs? I've noticed that those companies that rent out big subdivision communities, they lean in the direction of showers over bathtubs.
Well, I mean, a lot of it just depends. Like if you have younger children, what do they do in a bathtub?
Yeah, they splash. Yes.
Everything. So to answer your question, and once again, this is the basic stuff, but it's actually the best. I would always recommend a fiberglass enclosure that's a one piece.
One piece, whether it's a tub or a shower, you're saying?
Most of them are a tub shower.
Oh, gotcha.
Enclosure.
Combo. Okay.
It's not a 3-piece. It's not just the tub and then tiled walls. The entire thing is fiberglass.
Because it protects water from creeping into places.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, one of the most common problems we see with that is underneath the tub. So between the tub and the floor itself, it has to be supported too. If it's not, it'll crack. And I know our listeners are going to be like, well, we have a custom home and we want this tile, floor and or even if it's not just a shower, let's just say it's a tub and the tiles on the walls. That's where you start getting into a lot of concerns. One of the most common defects I see with tile, especially a shower, is it's not installed properly. It's not waterproofed properly. They don't do a shower pan test. We see mold all the time. So going back to your question, a fiberglass enclosure is the least likely to have leaks and moisture intrusion concerns.
Okay. What about water heaters? What is your recommendation for a mold resistant home there?
Well, we love the instant water heaters.
Yes. Is that tankless?
Yes.
Okay. What does that even mean?
But what's the problem with that?
I don't know, but what does it mean when it says it's a tankless water heater?
So a tanked water heater is like a 40, 50, 60, 80, whatever size you want. The water is heated inside of the tank, so there's elements in there.
Okay.
They're either electric or they're gas
or
propane. So the water's in there. Just think of it getting heated by whatever source you're using versus tankless, which is instant. It runs literally kind of through a apparatus is the best way to say it. And they're typically gas or propane, and it heats it as it's running through the water heater. So you're talking like a 2 foot by 3 foot rectangle versus a cylinder, which is a tank heater.
Okay.
To answer your question, if you go tankless, what happens, especially with teenagers?
Oh, they'll just use all the water.
They'll shower for
hours.
An hour.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what does that do?
Creates humidity and condensation and moisture, which then feeds mold. Yes.
So,
and they typically don't use the fan as well as they could.
Yep. As convenient as it is for tankless, if you have teenagers and improper ventilation in a bathroom, you're probably going to have mold issues.
Okay. What about central AC? Central heat and air.
So here's another controversial one. The best that for mold resistant, and once again, for our listeners, so we're at a really high elevation. We thought it was warm this morning because it was 50 degrees?
Yeah, exactly.
At nighttime, it usually gets pretty chilly. The best thing to do, and I'm talking where we live here in Wyoming, the best thing to do is electric baseboard heat.
Oh boy, everybody's now you've lost people.
Exactly. If you're going to go with an HVAC system and obviously AC, so you have a condensing unit outside, you have a coil that's above the air handler, it's important to make sure you have the proper ducting. There's different variations of duct work. But the best thing, honestly, is just tin. Like they literally make the square box and run it down.
Okay.
The flex duct that has insulation is usually a problem. But that's another issue too, is for our listeners, you got to make sure that all of your supply lines are insulated properly, or that will cause condensation.
Correct.
So to answer your question, electric baseboard heat, not hydronic, electric.
Wow.
And then you put just window units in the summertime.
So literally it's going back to an older time, but how do people keep track of moisture intrusion events, humidity? What is your suggestion for that in terms of mold prevention?
The thing we didn't touch on is drip pans.
Okay.
It's really important to have drip pans, especially like under your sink, under your washing machine, under your water heater if it's a tank. Water alarms. So it's just a device that when water hits it, it goes off, an audible alarm. You need to have those, and then humidity gauges. Those are really important. That's how you can monitor what's going on. Like right here in the office, what's the humidity in here? 32%.
32%.
Which is perfect.
Yes, it's because it should be under 60%, correct? Okay.
Yep. Over 60%, mold starts to colonize and becomes viable. Depending on the mold types, it varies, but pretty much within 48 hours, so 2 days, mold can colonize and start reproducing and causing major issues. So
I believe it.
Below 60%. So you can buy humidity gauges. The one we have right here on my desk, it's just the cheap ThermaPro.
Yeah, you can buy them on Amazon for dirt cheap.
Like a 3-pack is $20.
Yep.
Or you can buy like what you bought.
The Govee.
And what's great about the Govee? Explain that to our listeners.
It comes with an app, and the app also has certain things to indicate an alarm if something is going too high, and you know which room it's coming from.
Exactly. You set the thresholds. I don't know. What do you have it set at?
60%. Like if it hits 60%.
So it should be at like 55.
Yeah. So probably need to lower it.
It'll alert you when it gets over where you have it at 60%. It will alert you.
Exactly.
And I'm assuming it never.
Never does.
Because we're out west.
Exactly.
It's pretty dry.
Yeah.
So that's probably, in my opinion, the most important thing you can do in your home is humidity gauges. We've talked about this in other podcasts, but a whole home water monitoring system. And what that is so your water, the main water line comes up, crawl space, basement, wherever. Then you have the main valve. If you shut that valve, it shuts the whole home off.
Yep.
But it's a device, and it varies depending on what brand it is. But you can purchase the actual unit itself for less than $1,000. But you have to have a plumber install it. What does that do? It monitors the amount of water coming through that valve.
Okay.
And so let's just say, and I'm just throwing numbers out, let's just say you average 500 gallons per day. And all of a sudden, let's say you're gone for the weekend, it jumps up to 800. You can shut off the water if you can be anywhere.
Okay.
You can literally shut it off.
That sounds important to me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really important because you can control the water even if you're away. That's awesome.
Yep. Once again, if you invest, for our listeners, if you invest a few $1,000s when you're building your home, it'll save you thousands in mold remediation and then medical bills.
Absolutely. So what's your call to action for people?
Drip pans, water alarms, and humidity gauges.
There you go.
They're pretty cheap depending on what you do, but our listeners can go out and, for a drip pan, it's a little harder to put one in if you already have a washing machine. But when you're building, get a drip pan.
Okay.
All right. So you mentioned the book.
Yes.
In the description, I'll put the author profile in. And so I have 5 books for our listeners. You can get them in paperback. We have latest ones in hardback.
Yes, and Audible
and ebook.
Yes.
It's like I said, I'm supposed to be revising them, but don't have time. But for our listeners, you can go to Amazon and purchase whatever books you need. Like you said, there's a lot of great information in them, and they're not long books.
No, a quick read, but it'll give you everything you need.
Yeah, I think the shortest one's probably 12,000 words.
Yes, so you can get through it quick.
60 pages. So, all right. We appreciate all you listeners. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you're concerned about toxic mold and the health of your home, mycotoxin testing could be your next step. Visit CNC Contractor Services to discover how easy it is to test for harmful mycotoxins, compounds released by toxic molds. These comprehensive testing kits can help you identify hidden threats in your air, dust, and surfaces. When you purchase mycotoxin testing from Steve Worsley, you can also opt to get expert testing and interpretation directly from Steve. Take control of your indoor air quality today. Check out mycotoxin testing at cnccontractorservices.com.